Hello and welcome to How to Play AlderQuest. If you're watching this video, it's likely that you purchased AlderQuest through our second Kickstarter campaign or sometime thereafter, and you're looking for some assistance with how to play because perhaps you are not wanting to just rely on the rulebook, and that's fine. And you are not going to be able to rely on other videos that you can find because those are no longer valid because the rules did change between our two Kickstarter campaigns. We made some improvements to the game to streamline it, make it sort of more efficient, which makes it ultimately more fun. Much has stayed the same, but some fundamental things having to do with the way turns are set up, the way that turns occur, those have changed, and so I want to highlight those in this video. First, I'll just talk a little bit about the setup of the game. Feel free to skip over this portion of the video if you're comfortable setting up the game. We do enumerate the setup of the game in the rule book. Right at the start there on page 7, we talk about two-player setup, and that is the gameplay that I'm going to go over here in this video. The game does come with two boards that you'll place next to each other, as you see here. This is the field board, and then you have the matching board. On the field board is where we're going to be placing tiles that could be acorns, snowflakes, or traps that our opponent is going to have to try to investigate with their minions, and we're going to investigate their tiles with our minions. What we're looking for is those acorn points. We want to add those to the matching board and then match them to ultimately score. So it's a multi-step scoring process, and that's the objective of the game, is getting the most acorn points before winter, and winter is represented by the snowflakes. So as they're matched, they'll get processed into these bottom spaces. When you're setting up, you'll start by setting up the board and the tree. Then you'll separate out all of the different guild cards. So you have to separate out the hero cards, the minion cards, and the quarrel cards by guild. You'll then select your guilds. Right, so over here we have guardians and thieves playing against hunters and bards. So I've set up 3 heroes that I'd like to play with, and I've set up my 2 minion decks here with the basic sides of the minions facing up. And I've shuffled the guardian and thief quarrels together to form one quarrel deck, which I place here. To start, I've also taken, from the guild runes, I've taken 2 each of my guild. And the guild runes have been set up in the starting position here, which is also explained in the rules. And the remainder of the guild runes are in the rune pouch there. As for the tiles, as is explained and diagrammed on page 9, you'll start off with a collection of 2 1s, a 2, a 3, and 2 snowflakes, and those will be placed in a W pattern with 1 extra here if you're the red player or team, and an M pattern with an extra further away from the tree if you're the blue team, which goes second. 6 traps are also placed here. Those will be drawn when you play trap type quarrels, and the rest of your tiles being the rest of your acorns, the snowflakes that have your color back, and a couple of traps will go into your starting tile pouch. This pouch can be manipulated throughout the game through different effects, and you will draw from it each turn at the end of each of your field phases, and then at the beginning of your field phase, you'll be placing your tiles onto that board, and there are effects that can make you draw extra tiles and so on. So sorry, I'm sort of interweaving some of the gameplay and with the setup that I meant to go over here. So you will, to finish your setup is when you'll place your starting tiles that I mentioned. So you'll have a 2, a 3, 2 ones, and 2 snowflakes, and you can place them anywhere you'd like. Generally, you might hide your higher value acorns towards the back, as I've done here, or you can bluff your opponent, of course, as is the case anytime you place tiles. You can bluff your opponent by putting higher value targets closer to their side of the field, and you could put traps further away from them to feign that they are higher value acorns or something like that. And the reason that you do that is because, as I'll illustrate later, when a minion encounters a tile, the player that controls that minion can choose whether to reveal the tile in hopes that it's an acorn or dismiss the tile if they believe it's a trap. So bluffing is valuable for that reason. Once you have your setup complete, you'll be ready to start the game. Before I proceed on to taking a couple of turns, which I'll do in this video, I do want to go over just a couple of basic concepts, as is gone over in the rules on page 10. So over the course of the game, as I explained, you'll be trying to collect acorn points. So if I'm the red team, I'm trying to find my opponent's acorns. I'm trying to move them into the tree with my minions. That will get them onto the matching board, and then I want them to be matched on the board. I will collect them as points in that case. The main way that I'm doing that is with my minions, of course. They're moving around the field, and they can carry those acorns to the tree. They can also find snowflakes, which go directly into the discard if they're found. They can also run into traps, poor minions. They can also squabble with each other, and I'll talk more about all of that later. But the main system by which you're facilitating all of this is your action system, and that comes down to your heroes. So you have 3 heroes when you're playing one-on-one. If you're playing 2-on-2, which I'll talk about later, each player will have 2 heroes that they use on their turn. And your heroes are your actions. So play is now split up into 2 phases. There's a board phase and then a field phase. And your heroes are 2-sided. So the side that shows a small image of the hero with the background being the tree, this is called the board side of your hero. And then this is called the field side of your hero. So when you spend your hero on your turn, you'll flip it over to its other side to indicate that that action has been used in that phase. And so as you'll see when I go through a couple of turns, as I use my heroes, I flip them over, and once I'm done using my heroes, that's going to help indicate that I'm done with that phase. It will strictly indicate that in the case of the board phase. The field phase is a little more complex. There are more things that you can do, and I'll go over all of that. So your heroes are your actions. You definitely want to understand that concept right from the get-go. I do want to talk about runes and the matching board because it's such a huge element of the game. The runes are the guild runes are your economy. They are your resource. Not every action you take costs runes or any resource, but many actions do cost runes. So it is imperative that throughout the game you collect them. And the main way that you're going to do that is by spending hero actions to just do board actions. And those are explained here on the board phase reference. You'll be able to do movements on the matching board like swapping to adjacent runes with each other. If you have a rune with an space next to it that's empty, you can do a slide action. Slide it there. If there's nothing below it, it will fall due to gravity. Anytime a rune has nothing below it, because runes have been removed or it's been slid, it will fall due to gravity. The other action that you can do with your heroes on the board, or another action that's happening frequently on the board, is the dropping of a line, and I'll show you that when I start the first turn. But basically, you're going to be adding more runes to the board, and so when runes are matched here, generally what's happening is that I'm playing again over here on the red side as the thieves and the guardians. That's these runes here. So if I can align 3 thief runes next to each other, horizontally or vertically, I'll collect them as resources. If I align 3 hunter or bard runes, since those are my opponent's skills, I will discard them from the matching board. So that's a way to try to deny resources to my opponent. But to make sure that I can't starve them out in a cruel kind of way, a rival guild match of that kind will drop a new line onto the board as well. We'll get 4 fresh runes, and that could be anything. So sometimes you'll actually use a rival match to sort of facilitate more runes dropping into the board. So that's the basics of the rune of the guild runes. Now, once you have acorns and snowflakes on the board, which can happen during the game, once you have minions who are moving them onto there, they are compatible with one another, but they are not compatible with the guild runes. Okay, so and snowflakes are only compatible with one color acorn at a time, right? So you could have a match that's comprised of 2 snowflakes and 1 red acorn, or 2 snowflakes and 1 blue acorn. This, of course, is not a match. Red and blue acorns are not compatible with one another. 2 red acorns and a snowflake also works, and it is possible in the game to match more than 3. You can match 4 horizontally or vertically, and it is possible to match 5 either as an L shape or vertically. Let me move these off, but I should just say that unlike guild runes, which when you match them, it depends on what happens with them depends on who matched them, and that's explained here in the when you match reference. So if you match ally guild, you collect them. If you match enemy guild, you discard them and drop a new line. When acorns and snowflakes are matched, their fate is sealed. So these red acorns that my opponent has been trying to collect on the field, they will go to my opponent even if I match them. So I can take actions on the board to try to avoid them being matched, right? I can move them away from each other, and I can try to match snowflakes with my opponent's acorns so that they can't be used to match with my acorns, but I can't say match them to discard them away. And when snowflakes are matched, no matter who did that, they will go into the bottom spaces there to signify the progress of the game. When a 4th snowflake is occupying here, that's the end game trigger, and whoever has more acorn points at that time is the victor. I think I mentioned it before, but as runes are matched, say your own guild runes, ally runes as you might call them, are matched, you're going to take them to your side. You're going to spend them to play quarrels or activate hero abilities that have a cost, or to summon minions. And those are going to go to a discard beside the matching board, which when there are no runes to be drawn from the rune pouch, that discard will fill the rune pouch at that time. So that's what I wanted to explain about runes before I get started on gameplay, and I'll go through a couple of turns. Basically, I have the game set up for one-on-one play again. So you're seeing 3 heroes per side. And I have the standard setup that's explained in the rules for how the tiles are distributed, how many runes I'm starting with, how many traps have started in my pouch versus here in my supply. But I wanted to mention really quickly that the game is very modular. So the different elements of the game can be tweaked in a way that won't break the game, especially because it's head-to-head. And so you can have a little fun with it if you're tempted to, and you can tweak rules. You can, have custom rules that, as long as it's balanced for both players, it will be fair. So as an example of this, and this is not a rule of the game, you could just decide to start with more than the 2 traps, in your starting tile pouch. Or you could say, okay, every time that a minion tributes an acorn, I'm going to draw a quarrel or something like that. Quarrels are your powerful single-use effects in the game. So those are not rules of the game, but I wanted to make the point before I forget that the game is modular in that way. If you wanted to play a faster game, you might start with more snowflakes out on the field, or start with snowflake tiles in your hand or something like that. Or start with snowflake tiles in the rune pouch. You could do that. So you can tweak the game to your liking. Or if you want to play the game as exactly as intended and exactly as recommended for what I would call standard play, then ignore everything I just said and stay tuned for a demonstration of a couple of turns of gameplay. So I'm going to try to set this up to where you can see one side of the board here. Okay, so I'll go through a round sequence. That's going to consist of a board phase and a field phase, where in each of those phases, play alternates between the 2 sides, the 2 players of the 2 teams. And play always starts with red. By that I mean red player starts with the initiative token. When a player achieves a match 4 or greater on the matching board, they will steal initiative. And that just means that beginning in the next phase, they will go first. Because at the start of each phase, you check which side has the initiative token, and that side will go first in that phase. And so that can be extraordinarily impactful, as I will explain. That can be extraordinarily impactful when it comes to facilitating the scoring of points on the field. Because if initiative never changes, then it is possible to, for your opponent to always answer your movements on the board. So I approach your acorns with a minion, you answer back by attacking my minion with yours, and they squabble and they're both ejected. So sometimes what can break that friction or traction is for initiative to change, and that can be really game-changing. Obviously, quarrel effects and hero abilities do a lot to that end as well. Basically, I'm now going to just walk through a couple of turns. So we'll start with the red player, since it's the first turn and the red player has the initiative token, and we'll start with the board phase. I'm going to position this here so we can see the board. Okay, at the start of each player's turn in the board phase, they drop a new line. That means taking at random 4 runes from the rune pouch, placing them at the top of the board and dropping them in simultaneously there. Okay, so in other words, you get a free line at the start of your turn in the board phase. Once you drop the line, then you are on to your hero actions. And those are enumerated here on the board phase scroll on both sides of the matching board. Those actions again are swap, slide, drop a line, or use a hero ability. When you use these actions, what they cost is a hero action, right? So when I do one of those, I'm going to turn over my hero. Once I've turned over all 3, I will be done with my board phase. Board phase is quite elegant and streamlined because those are the actions you can do, including using the hero ability that's printed on the board side of your hero card. You cannot play quarrels. You cannot summon minions or move minions or do other things that you can do in the field phase. It's really all about using hero abilities on their board side and manipulating the board through those simple actions. Okay, so it's the first turn of the game. I have some runes that I've started with, but I know that I can spend through 4 runes very quickly. So I'm going to use a couple of hero actions to do a couple of swaps on the board. So first I'll exhaust my Turtle Cleric Biggles, and I'll do a swap here, moving the Thief rune 1 space closer to achieving a match 3. I'm going to exhaust Holly, the Skunk, and I'm going to move this Thief rune here via swap, and I'm going to collect these aligned or matched Thief runes. Now I have a bigger budget of runes, so I have 7 here. I feel comfortable activating my relatively expensive hero ability on my Fox Ninja hero named Kismet. This is a very influential ability, and that's why it costs 3 runes. Now I can spend a mix of any runes I want. I have the most in Thief runes, so to keep a balance here, I'll just spend Thief runes to activate this ability, though I could have spent Guardian runes if I'd like. Now, why would I want to keep a balance of runes? I'll just mention that Quarrel cards do cost a specific rune. That's the main reason that you want to have both available, because you don't know what you're going to draw out of your Quarrel deck when you do draw those. And minions do cost specific runes, but you're always free to just summon based on what you have. And for example, my Thief hero could summon a Guardian minion if I'd like to. So that's not restrictive on that end, but it is better to have a balance than not. So anyway, I've spent 3 runes here so I can activate Misdirection. I'm just going to read what it says, and I'm going to do what it says. I can summon a Thief minion into an open space with a face-down ally tile and add a trap tile to my pouch. So I'm going to take a Thief minion and summon it to an open space. That means a space without a minion in it, with a face-down ally tile. The cool thing about that is that at the start of my field phase, in later turns, I'll be placing tiles onto the board. So knowing that I have this ability available in the board phase, I might choose to place tiles deep into my opponent's territory so that I can be summoning minions out into my opponent's territory. Why is that very powerful? Because normally when you summon a minion, it goes into the space right in front of your hero, and I'll show you that once we're in the field phase. The other part of her ability said that I should add a trap tile to my pouch. Well, that's pretty neat, because that doesn't normally happen. Usually when you play traps, they go straight into your hand so that you can place them on the next turn. So this is a little bit of bag building from her ability. I used her ability, so I'm going to flip her over. I've used all 3 of my heroes. I did some work collecting runes and then spending them. I'm done with my turn here in the board phase. It's now my opponent's turn in the board phase. I'm going to walk over there so that I can take the turn from blue player's perspective here. So again, to start board phase, you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to drop a free line that I'm entitled to, except this time the drop will look a little bit more interesting because in the second column, this rune is going to fall all the way down to the bottom row. Okay, so this is the what I would call the board setup that I have presented to me for my turn here in board phase on turn 1. So I'm surveying the board and I'm thinking about how I want to use my hero actions to make matches or do anything else that I might want to do. And I could see myself doing a similar maneuver to what I did in the last turn. So, but I'll do it a little bit differently. I'll spend Leaf's action to do a slide, and I'll slide this Guardian rune to the left. That's going to cause these runes to fall. And wouldn't you know it, if I were willing to spend my 2 actions on it, I could match 4 and steal initiative. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I was a little tempted to maybe use one of my cool hero abilities after just a simple match, but yeah, I want to match 4. So I'm going to exhaust both of my remaining heroes, and I'll first swap here, and then I'll swap here, and this will give me the match 4. It also put my Guardian runes into a position where maybe I'll be able to match those easily in a later turn, or I'll force my opponent to feel like they have to deal with them to keep me from matching them. So that's the end of my board phase since I took all 3 of my hero actions, but notably I matched 4 or more, so I'm going to steal the initiative token. So now you're going to immediately see the effect of that because we're starting the field phase now, and since blue team has the initiative, blue team's going to go first in the field phase. So the field phase is just a little more complicated than the board phase. We're going to have more options essentially than in the board phase for how we spend our hero actions. And I'm going to set the camera up over here so that we can see this side of the field board. So there are 2 things that happen in the field phase before I'm ready to take actions. The first is that I will place onto the board any tiles that I have in my hand. I don't start the game with any tiles in my hand, so in my first turn I don't have to do any placements. The second thing that I do is I ready any allied minions that are in play. Since it's my first field phase, and because I don't have a neat ability like Kismet's, I don't have any minions in play to ready, so I also skip that step. Now I'm on to my action phase. This is where I will spend hero actions. I can move any minions that are in play. Minions each have their own movement. I'll go over that in a later turn when we have minions in play. And I can play any Quarrel cards that I have in my hand. As the second player, I do start the game with 2. First player starts the game with 1 in hand. And so what I need to do is sort of survey the field. It's definitely more straightforward when I don't have any minions in play yet, but I can freely move minions, take hero actions, play quarrels. I can do these in any order that I want, and so I'll show you what that looks like. But the things that heroes can do with their actions are they can use their hero ability, they can summon a minion, or they can upgrade a minion, or they can draw a quarrel. So summoning a minion costs one rune of the color, the guild of the minion that you want to summon. So very simply, I will use my frog rogue bard hero here and spend a hunter rune and summon a hunter minion here. Now that minion is going to come into play exhausted always. Then I'm going to take a look at my other hero actions. So I have the ability on this hero to simply eject a minion. I'm tempted to do that. It would cost 3 and exhausting my hero, so it's quite expensive to do. And this hero has the unique ability to move one of my minions anywhere in play, and that's quite strong. But I also have 2 quarrels, so I'm going to show you what those are all about as well. And let me just do that first to sort of illustrate that I can do things in any order that I'd like. So I'm going to use this quarrel called Quickness. It costs me 1 hunter rune. I place that in the rune discard, and I do the effect of the quarrel, and I place the quarrel in a discard pile next to my quarrel deck. Over there. So I'm going to ready this minion due to the effect of that quarrel. And before I take any other hero actions or play any other quarrels, I'm going to go ahead and move my minion. So I'll show you how minion movement works. Any basic minion is entitled to 2 so-called normal movements. So a normal movement is just into an orthogonally adjacent space. So sideways, forward. You can move forward and then sideways. You can move sideways and then forward. You can move forward and then backwards, and so on. So just moving one orthogonally adjacent space is a normal movement, and you get 2 consecutive normal movements. That's what a minion is entitled to, and then it exhausts. If a minion has special movement, then it can replace one of its normal movements with that special movement type. And those are explained in the rules, and the names of them are also referenced on the side of the matching board. Charge, speed, flight, and so on. So I'm going to do 2 normal movements to move my minion here into the space in front of the enemy or rival minion. And then I'm going to use one more quarrel card here called Lunging Shot. I'm going to spend a Bard rune, discard it. Now this says move an ally minion 1 space closer to a rival hero. That means toward the other side of the field, and the opponent draws a tile. So I'm going to discard that. And what I'm going to do is move this minion into the rival minion. Now, 2 minions can never occupy the same space, so when an ally minion tries to occupy the same space as a rival minion, a squabble occurs. Now they simply neutralize each other. They're both ejected. So I will place this minion on the bottom of its minion deck, and likewise with the other. If either minion had been holding an acorn, that would have just dropped where the squabble occurred. But in this case, it was two basic minions. No one was holding any rival acorns yet, and so they're simply removed from play. Now, I neutralized my opponent's threat there. They were getting very close to my territory, thanks to their expensive hero ability. So I think I made out resource-wise. And now I have two other hero actions to use. And I think that I'll use one of them to summon a minion. I'll summon another hunter minion. That will go here. And then finally, I'll use this expensive ability called airdrop. And it says move an ally minion directly to an open ground space. Ground space just meaning not a space up in the canopy. And exhaust it unless you pay an additional 1. Now the minion's already exhausted, so I won't worry about paying the extra cost. I'll just aggressively and greedily move this minion deep into enemy territory here. And so I do want to drop it on one of my opponent's tiles to see what it is. So I'll drop it here in the back row, and I will choose to reveal this tile as opposed to dismissing it because I know that my opponent's starting tiles do not include traps. So it is a 2 value acorn. That's excellent. Now my minion is holding this acorn. When it moves in the future, it will be able to carry the acorn with it. Minions can also pass acorns to allies in adjacent spaces, and that doesn't cost anything to do. So if you set up a little line of your minions, you can pass acorns to them. But for now, that minion is going to hang out there with sort of taunting the red player there deep in his territory with one of his relatively valuable acorns. They do range from 1 to 3. And that was my airdrop ability, so I'm going to exhaust that hero. Now, I've exhausted all of my heroes, which in the board phase would signify that my turn is complete, but that's not necessarily true here because I don't have to use my hero actions as the last thing I do. Remember, I can move minions that are in a ready state, and I can play quarrels. In this case, I know I'm done because all of my minions are exhausted, my one minion, and I have no quarrels. I used both of my quarrels in that turn. I also used most of my runes, which was not a very conservative thing for me to do, and we'll see whether that pays off or not. But other things that I might have considered doing instead of using my expensive airdrop ability would be summon a second minion into play, or draw a quarrel with that hero. That would have cost 0 runes. Instead, I spent 3 runes to move a minion very productively. Whether or not that turns out to be a good idea will definitely depend on future turns and what my opponent is able to do as well. So the way that I signify that my field phase is complete, my field turn is complete here, is that I draw a tile from my tile pouch here. Now I'm not going to show it to my opponent. I have unluckily drawn a 3 from my tile pouch. I'll place it in front of me. This is going to be placed onto the field into any vacant space. That means a space that doesn't have a minion or a tile. I can place it in my opponent's territory. I can place it into any vacant space. That's going to happen at the start of my turn in the next field phase. I'm going to place this tile and any other tiles that I have in my hand. Remember that tiles can be added to my hand through other means, like other effects. If I, for example, play a trap type Quarrel, I'll take a trap into my hand and I'll place both of these at the start of the next field phase, namely on my turn in the field phase, and my opponent won't know which is which. In fact, they won't know that they're not both traps. For all they know, I drew a trap from my pouch. So that's where the bluffing can come in. So I finished my turn here in the field phase for blue player. I'm going to go back to red side and take the first field phase turn on the red side. So I know that my priority is probably going to be dealing with this minion or doing something productive for myself and getting at my opponent's acorns. So I've taken a look at my Quarrel here, and it has to do with manipulating the rune board. I'm going to ignore that because there's really... I can't seem to make anything of this Quarrel right now on the rune board. I can't seem to use it to facilitate a match, though it is very powerful situationally speaking. Instead, I'm going to be looking to summon minions and possibly use hero abilities. So this is a really interesting hero ability for the field phase called Metal. I can swap two adjacent runes or slide a rune. So this basically gives Holly the swap and slide actions for the cost of 1, but during the field phase. So that is uniquely a way to gain resources or any way manipulate the matching board during the field phase. And so I'll start off by doing that. I'm going to spend 1 here, and I'm going to swap these Guardian runes. I'm realizing now that I misspoke before. On blue side's turn, I had mentioned positioning the Guardian runes to make them easy for blue player to match and acquire, but these, of course, belong to red player. So now I've got more runes to work with, and thank goodness. Though each of my abilities here cost 2, neither one of them is going to help me dispense with this rival minion here, because they both rely on me having minions in play. So I think I had better get at least 1 minion in play. So I'm going to spend a Guardian rune just because I have more of them. Summon a Guardian here. And it does come into play exhausted, so it's not going to be ready to try to squabble with the rival minion. However, if I'm lucky enough to steal initiative in the next board phase, then this minion will be able to act before that one, and I could force a squabble, and my acorn will stay right where it is, which is what I want. With my last hero action here, I can either draw another Quarrel, I could upgrade a minion, or I could summon another minion. I think I'll, since I've shown you summoning minions, I might as well do the upgrade action. So this costs 0 runes, and what I do is I flip over my minion here. So this is the first time you're seeing an upgraded minion, and this is the Rabbit Cleric. So upgraded minions always have an ability with a certain trigger. His trigger is Tribute. That means when he drops an enemy acorn off at the tree, so when he climbs the tree with a rival acorn and drops it off to be added to the matching board, you'll gain this effect, and the effect is summon a minion into a space in front of one of your heroes. So it's like a free summon action. He also has special movement that's indicated in the gem in the upper right corner. This lightning bolt symbol means that he has speed. When he moves, he'll simply be entitled to 1 extra normal movement. So he can go 1, 2, 3, or something like that. Now, why is that excellent for us right now? It means that if things go the way that they might go, which is that this minion might plan to move back toward the great tree with this acorn, I'll be able to catch up to it with this minion. Now we can keep playing and see if that is actually what transpires, but this is giving me some hope here, my little lightning bolt. Now I have no quarrels. My heroes are exhausted. I'm sorry, I do have a quarrel, but I'm not planning to play it. My heroes are exhausted and my minions are exhausted. So I'm going to signify the end of my turn here by drawing a tile from my pouch. Let's see what we got. We got a 1. We're in better shape, though we don't know it, than our opponent who drew a 3. Poor blue. So we'll hold this here until the start of our next field phase turn. That was a full round that, once you are comfortable with the different actions and you know what your options are, can go very quickly. If you're not stopping to explain every possible option that you have. So I'll play one more round so that we can see some other situations transpire. So from the end of the field phase where I've drawn a tile, now we'll go immediately back to the board phase. And we'll start with the player who has the initiative token, and that is still blue. So at the start of the board phase, we drop a line for the blue team. And that line looks like this. These are the 4 runes that I grabbed as honestly as I could at random from the bag, which was shaken thoroughly. These will drop in here. Okay, so we have an interesting board to use on our board phase here. So even though it's the board phase and I'm primarily concerned with manipulating the board, I also just want to take a look at my heroes and make sure, see if there's anything that I can do about my opponent's minion. I'm sorry, my opponent's minion there that's, threatening my plan to move this acorn into scoring position, that is, get it onto the matching board. And so I do have an ability here with my frog rogue, and it's called Volley, and it's capable of removing a rival basic minion. Now my opponent knew that, so that could be why they use the upgrade action. They have no basic minions in play, so they're safe from that ability right now. So I will go ahead and do some more basic actions. I'm going to do a swap with one of my heroes. I'll flip that over. I'll swap this bard rune down, collect those so that I'm not so devoid of resources to spend on things like hero abilities or summoning or quarrels. Now I don't think I'm going to be doing any more manipulation of the board, so I'm going to move over here for the use of my other hero actions. Actually, let's see. I could decide to drop a line. Now I can't draw quarrels, I can't play quarrels or anything like that in the board phase, so I'm really limited to my hero abilities and manipulating the board. I'll use this ability on Draven called Beguile. I add a trap tile to my hand and I draw a tile from my pouch. So I'm going to draw that tile at random from my pouch. Oh no, it's another 3. And I'm adding a trap to my hand. So that's certainly some misdirection for my opponent. They know that I just got a trap tile and I didn't even have to play a trap card to get it, which I normally would. But this is not looking very good for me at the start of my field phase turn. In this round, I'll have to place all 3 of those, and that'll put some high value targets on the board for my opponent. The other thing to note is that as more tiles are added to the board, it becomes easier and inevitable, in fact, that minions from your opponent's side will be able to access your tiles, whether it's because you're placing them in their territory because you ran out of room here, or anyway just because they're more abundant on the board. Finally, with my hero that has not acted yet in board phase, I will do one swap action here, and I'm just going to swap this Hunter Rune down to align it. Now I've also somewhat closer aligned my opponent's Thief Runes, and that could work against me, but we'll see. We'll see about that. So that's it for my board phase. I spent all 3 of my hero actions, and I'll move over to the red side's board phase. Do a free line drop here. Now, if I'm the red player, what I'd love to do is do a slide upward, but I can't actually do that. You can only slide sideways. So I think my goal is just to try to get more resources if I can. I don't want to use my hero ability to move a rival minion away from me, because that would put it further away from, it would actually put it closer to the Great Tree with one of my Acorns, and that would be bad for me. So I'll just be looking to take board actions to maybe maximize my resources here. So first I'll exhaust one of my heroes and I'll drop a line. Now, when you drop a line, you only add runes to any non-full column. So I've only taken 3 here from the bag to drop into these 3 spaces. Well, now this is interesting. It looks like I can get a match 4 here, which I'll definitely want to do so that I can claim initiative. So I'll spend 2 other hero actions to first swap here, and then do a slide, and then we'll slide down here. Now that is a rival match 4, but that's okay. Any match 4 or more will take initiative for the player who doesn't already have it, or team that doesn't already have it. and any rival match will cause another line to drop. So quite a full board for the next player or team to act on the next board phase. But for now, I've used my board phase actions, so we'll move to the field phase, and thankfully I was able to claim initiative there, so I'll be acting first in this field phase. And so the first step in the field phase is to place any tiles that I have in my hand, and remember this is a 1. So while I do want to place it far from my opponent's side, I might want to reserve some further back spaces for high value acorns or traps that I want to pretend are high value acorns. And so I'm going to place this 1 over here about halfway, at the halfway point up the field, but further away from the tree. Then, after I've placed all tiles from my hand onto the field, I ready all of my minions because they will be entitled to their movement. And then I will proceed to take hero actions, move minions, and play quarrels that I wish to pay for. So I will use this quarrel at this time. It's called Anchoring Word. I can move a rune directly to any space on the bottom row and then shift runes in the same column upward. I'll discard that, and I will move this thief rune here and shift these up. And we'll score a thief rune match, enriching me in runes and making it so I have a good amount of runes to spend on expensive hero abilities. Speaking of which, I will run roughshod over my opponent's minion thanks to Biggle's hero ability, Shield Siphon. I'll choose an ally and a rival minion, this ally and this rival minion. When they squabble this turn, the ally minion is not ejected. So I'm giving my minion a shield of a kind. To pay for that, I need to spend any 2. I'll spend 2 thief runes for that. And why not? I'll go ahead and do that squabble at this time. So I'll move into this rival minion. They'll squabble. My minion is not ejected, but the rival is. So I'll put it on the bottom of the hunter minion deck. And then I'll do my other 2 movements because I do have speed, you'll recall. I'll move forward and forward again, and then I'll exhaust there. So I'm in a rather threatening position with my rabbit. I do have 2 more heroes to act with. I definitely like the idea of just really enriching myself further and using my metal ability again. So I will spend a guardian rune to do a swap here and match 3 guardians. And then with my last hero, I will draw a Quarrel for 0 runes. This Quarrel is capable of trading 1 minion for multiple minions, and so that may prove valuable at a later time when there are more minions on the board. Let me go back to the blue side for its field phase turn here in round 2. So again, the first thing I need to do in field phase is place my tiles, and now I am downright terrified because my opponent has a speedy rabbit cleric close to my territory, and I have to place 2 3s. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and place them far away from that rabbit, that darn rabbit. And I'll place a trap closer. And I'll place it here into the tree. Now, when a minion gets an acorn and is carrying one or more acorns and wants to go up into the tree, they have to do it from a space that is adjacent to the tree. So they can be here and go upward. They could be here and go upward. So knowing that, I can place a trap there in one of their access points. Now when they encounter that tile, they are free to dismiss it, but there is of course the element of greed. If they're already holding an acorn, why not pick up another one on the way up to the tree? Well, hopefully they'll think that and they'll flip over my trap. If they do, I'll have the opportunity to either eject that minion or activate one of my armed traps. Now I haven't armed any traps this game, but just to show you what that looks like, if I had this one in my hand, I could spend the rune to play it, but unlike a normal Quarrel, since this is a trap, I would arm it face up here next to my trap tiles. And if my opponent triggers my trap, I could choose to activate it, and that would discard it, and I would use its effect at that time. This one's effect is that you eject the minion that activated this trap, and you summon a hunter minion into that space, so you actually replace their minion with your own. It's quite powerful. But getting on with my turn from where we left off, I will place my opponent's minion back where it was. I've placed my tiles. I have no minions to ready, and so I will simply be on to hero actions and quarrels. Now I have no quarrels as of now, so I'm going to just summon 3 minions. I can do that. There's nothing keeping me from doing that. And I do have only 3 runes left, so that's a little bit scary. A more conservative thing to do might be to summon 1 minion and then spend 0 runes to upgrade it. But I feel like getting 3 minions, so I spent 3 barred runes. Those are the minions that I'll get. So my opponent on their next field phase turn may be able to do some serious damage with their rabbit. Namely, if I'm not able to stop them, they could, using their speed, pick up 1 or possibly 2 acorns, then move up into the tree, and that would cause them to tribute those acorns and add them to the matching board. But my hope is that by investing now in minions, that in later field phase turns, I will be able to capitalize on the increasing number of acorns that should be present on the field at that time. So that concludes the second round of play